Hey guys, I'm taking a break from my Philco Predictas sets to catch you up on some other stuff I've picked up recently. Oh, and don't worry, I will get back to the Philco 15DX. It's actually pretty close to try a first power-up. Alright, so first up, I think I mentioned this briefly in another video. This is a B&K 470 CRT tester rejuvenator. Sure, I've already got a tester rejuvenator, the Suncor CR70, but I figured it couldn't hurt to have a backup. And it was only 10 bucks. Now, the first thing I noticed that was bad about this right away is that the foam inside was completely deteriorated and mostly gone. There should be little carved out pockets up here for each of these adapters, but instead they're just kind of all flopping down here loose in the bottom. And what's worse is that the black and white ones are missing. I've got the color, like the number 11 there, or number 1 rather. So I got this guy, and I got the number 2 for a 70-degree color. Got the number 3 for a 90-degree color. But I don't have the number 9, which is for the Predictas, and the number 10 Duo decal, which is used for virtually every, well, not virtually, it's used for every other TV I've got, except the 7-inch electrostatic ones. So I was hunting around on eBay, but then somebody pointed out that they're actually pretty easy to make yourself. So I ordered up a couple Molex connectors and some of the female pins, and Video Camera Member was kind enough to show me the internal wiring between the device and these pins. So I am going to try fabricating my own adapters. As for the tester itself, I did some brief testing and it seems to work alright. At least it turns on and I can adjust the heater ranges. So be looking for this in an upcoming video. Speaking of B&K, below that, something I was very happy to get. It's a B&K 415 that was recommended to me by several of you guys for doing alignments on newer sets. All the alignments I've shown you to date were on older TVs that used a 21 or 22 megahertz intermediate frequency. Starting, I think, in the mid-50s, pretty much every TV switched to a 44 megahertz intermediate frequency. That's what this guy does. And in particular, it's solid state and it has a whole bunch of markers that are built in. So in the past I've only had one marker and I would keep moving it around. Well, this has a bunch of preset markers for the commonly used key frequency points. Now, best of all, you may have noticed this is the original box. Now, this isn't quite new old stock, but I'd say it's mint. I'll pull it out and show you what I mean. Some of the original packing material, like this molded bottom, was still in the box, but it clearly had been opened. However, this thing looks pristine, and the power cord is wrapped up. I'm not sure if that's the original or not, though, but I mean, there is not a scuff, a scratch, a worn mark on this thing anywhere. Have not plugged it in yet, don't know if it works, but I think the odds are pretty good. Here's what it looks like inside. Most of it's taken up by all these crystal marker banks down in here. And there's power supply there in the corner. They probably could have used a smaller cabinet, but they might have just used this because they already had a bunch on hand, because I think this is exactly the same size as the older B&K 1077B. Now, on the downside, I did not get the manual, although I found a PDF copy online. And some of the cables are missing. But the important ones are here. So I've got the one with the output with the impedance matching pad here. 75 300 ohm switchable, and I've got the demodulation probe. So that's how you feed the signal into your set, and this is how you pick the signal out of the set. What I'm missing are the connectors that would go to your scope and the ground connectors, like basically just a banana jack on one end with an alligator clip on the other. So for these two guys, this goes to your scope vertical input, your y-axis, and this goes to the x-axis. I'll have to rig something up. I do have one or two new old stock, I think they call them amphenol connectors or something like that. That I have some some bare connectors I can run some coax into and put BNC connectors on the other end, I guess. Alright, continuing on. A friend actually got this, I think, off of eBay, and he dropped it off for me to use if I need it. I know this is something else some of you asked me about, if I had one. Well, up until a few days ago, I did not. This is an ECR tester. I'm sorry, ESR, which I think stands for equivalent series resistance or something along those lines. Basically, this is for testing electrolytics, and in particular modern ones, like low voltage ones, say in a flat screen TV. I've played around with this a bit. I put fresh batteries in it, I calibrated it, and it seems to work just fine. Idea is you hook these two little leads up to a capacitor, and it will check to see if it's shorted out, like it is right now when I put these probes together, or it checks to, it gives an indication of the resistance with a test frequency of around 100 kilohertz. Now, you can look more about this up online if you're really curious. Some guys have asked, can you use these on vintage TVs, like an old multi-section can electrolytic rated for 450 volts? I don't think so, because I pulled out a box of old cruddy, grungy capacitors I pulled out of TVs, and every section tested okay. But I know some of them are leaky. If I apply 400 volts with a vintage cap tester, they definitely show a lot of leakage. So I really think that you should only use this on caps that are rated for, say, less than 50 volts or so, like you'd find in a fairly modern device, say one made in the last 20 years. Now, as for these packages, they just arrived and I have not opened them up. I know what's in these two, and I think I know what's in this box. First up, I'll tackle these packages on the top here. There's actually two separate auction wins from the same seller, and we just take them together. What these are parts for a Motorola TV, one of the 7-inch sets, particularly a portable suitcase set. Some of my sets are missing bits and pieces. Typically the backs are missing, or some knobs, maybe some controls are bad. And it's nice when somebody has a set that, say, has a bad picture tube or some other critical problem, and they part it out and list all the stuff individually on eBay. It's sad to see a set die, but if it wasn't for people like this seller, I would never find something like this. And I would have to spend hours trying to fabricate one for myself, or from scratch, or just not have a back. And this one looks to be in very good condition. Typically these corners are blown out from the screws being inserted and removed over the years. So this is for the 7VT5 model. I'll pull mine out in a moment. Let's give it a test fit. And it even has the power cord, which looks to be a little dried out, but it's not too bad. I think it actually could be used. believe the way this is supposed to work is the cord wraps around these ears that are on the back here. Instead of being wrapped around like that, I think it's supposed to be wrapped around like this. And there we go. That's better. This other box should be the front. Mine's in decent shape, but I think this one might be in a little bit better condition. I did a video a while ago on my suitcase set where I didn't get it running, but I restored it cosmetically and I buffed out the front bezel and did some knob cleaning, I think. But there are some stress cracks in the front bezel on my set. I felt a little bad for this seller because I was the only bidder on this stuff. And he wasn't asking a whole lot of money. He also sold the entire, and did a nice job packing too. He also sold the entire chassis, and I saw that auction ended last night, again with only a single bidder, so somebody out there got an entire, I think it was a TS-18 chassis for 10 bucks. So we had a box with some padding, and then inside that, another bag with more padding, and finally the bezel. So, I'll give this seller high marks for packaging. Got a little chip here. Otherwise, looks to be in good shape. This is the only flaw I see. But even if I end up not using it in this one set, I'm sure I'll come across another set someday that needs one, or I can do some bartering with another collector. Alright, now for the final box. Before I move on to opening that last box, let's see how this back fits. So this is my Motorola suitcase set. Back, so just like that. Looks like we've got a winner. Now as for the front, I mentioned there were stress cracks on mine. Well, they're pretty hard to see, even with a really bright LED flashlight. But basically, if you look at the right angle and the right light, there are some concentric stress marks in there. Not the kind of thing I'd really be too concerned about. I think I'll wait and see how the set plays and see if you can see them at all. But if need be, this is a perfect drop-in replacement for it. Last but not least, in fact, I think this will be the most interesting item in this video. I was up way too late one night as usual, and I saw this on eBay with a buy it now, and the seller said it was an unusual model, and he didn't see this one come up very often. I'd never seen it come up before, so I jumped on the buy it now. Did a nice job packaging it. Hope it survived. Yes. Good. Worried about the dial glass breaking. Alright, there it is. What is it? Well, it's a UHF to VHF converter made by Philco. One of the better made, fancier units too. Nice dial glass, reverse painted, not a crack in it. Tuning works. Not the smoothest action though. So these are continuous tuning from channel 14 up through channel 82. And because you're tuning over a huge range, it's usually a vernier drive on these. And this seems to be a direct drive. There's probably a dial string behind it. Switch seems to work. Mahogany veneer cabinet. Needs refinishing, but I don't see any chunks missing. I don't think it's separating. It's in decent condition. All 4 original rubber feet are here. Bottom metal screens in place. The back's here in really good condition. Usually these things are all beat up. I'm going to poke around in my rider's manuals and see if I can find a service info for this. And maybe if I have time next Friday night, I'll do a restoration video on this. But for now, that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed this look at some of my latest finds.